Yeah, it's been a while. I've I've been back making music from a new perspective, I guess. And where I am, I guess, is completely different to where I was physically and mentally.
Novo Amor means new love in Portuguese, and it's fitting. Novo Amor's music feels like turning a page, starting a new chapter, and finding peace. If you're watching this video, I'll bet you're as obsessed as I am with understanding how his music captures that feeling so well, and how we can make such emotionally honest music ourselves. So that's exactly what we're gonna go through in this video. Today we're gonna produce a song in the style of Novo Amor. It's the song that you were hearing at the beginning of the video, but it's actually a lot more exciting than that. You see, this isn't my song. Earlier this year, a Belgian artist named Lintz came to me with a new artist project he was starting called Oaken. He told me it was Novo Amor inspired, but the coolest part was the story behind it. Traffic lights, late night shifts. Lintz hasn't always made indie folk music. I'm gonna show you what he used to make. Trust me, you aren't ready for this. Okay, 1, 2, 3. It's my favorite thing. But as funny as the switch up in genre is, it actually holds the key for me as a producer to make his songs come to life. As a producer, I need to understand the why behind the music. And this is something you should always be asking yourself. Why does Lintz, or why do you, want to make music that sounds like Novo Amor in the first place? So we hopped on a call and I asked him.
Yeah, we have to go back like 15 years ago, I think. Before I only made music in metalcore scene. It was also a time I was mad at the world, and it's also the lyrics. Indie folk and the songs I want to make with Oaken, it's like, yeah, the opposite of what I'm trying to make for over a decade now.
So this project is what I call a rejection of the old self, which is one of the most powerful emotional foundations. But as a producer, I need something a bit more concrete.
With metalcore, if we go into the studio, my vocals has like 16, 17 layers. It's all chopped. It's the same with the drums, with the guitars. Everything is on the grid. There is no space in between, and that's how you do it with metalcore and metal. You don't have any freedom.
Knowing Lintz's story, I can translate those emotional values we talked about, non-conformity, freedom, space, into actual tangible musical characteristics that I can use in my production. So we're gonna do so much more than just making a song that sounds like Novo Amor in this video. We're helping an artist launch a new chapter in their life and finally make music that sounds like them. And if you wanna see how it turns out, then stick around. So let's get into my first production session. Lintz sent over an electric guitar and double-tracked vocals as a starting point, and from there, I started to lay down my initial ideas. I just want to start with some really ambient stuff. This preset ambient swells off of Impact Soundworks pedal steel is crazy good for this kind of thing. I'm just gonna find a few places to have some really soft pedal steel kind of swell in at little bits. That's real nice and simple. This is my favorite like pad preset for this kind of style. Glass piano in Spitfire Labs, totally free. Yeah, I just find really subtle ways to just have this be like an underlying atmosphere. Let's actually give it a measure, or maybe 2 measures before everything comes in. There's one thing I know I want to try in the chorus, which is just to layer up these guitars a little bit with some acoustics. So I'm gonna record that now. Alright, so I just double tracked that part nice and simple. Made a mistake in the first take, so just punched in at the end here. Yes, FL Studio sucks for comping. For now, just copy that into chorus number 2. All right, I want to get a bass part in here too. I think I'll just kind of follow the root notes of the guitar, the main guitar part. I'm going to do it with a pick to get a little bit of that sound. Now, in my pre-production call with Linz, we talked a bit about having drums in the chorus, kind of doing like a that kind of thing. So I'm gonna try to do something that sort of builds up through the chorus. There's this sort of dum 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 chuk dum dum dum. So like tom 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 snare tom 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 snare tom tom. Okay, something like that. Let's see. By the way, I'm using Easy Drummer 3. This is the Indie Folk kit, which is an expansion pack. Okay, not that. I'm not a drummer, but when I'm making these like fake drum parts, I am trying to imagine a drummer playing it if we're going for the sound of like a live drum part, which we are in this case. So all these cymbals, I'm imagining the drummer is going to be hitting with their right hand, which means they have, you know, their feet and their left hand free. But yeah, like I don't want to overload things, so I can't really have the snare and the tom hit at the same time, because then that would mean the drummer has 3 arms. So yeah, just kind of have that in mind a little bit. And it was a good thing I had that in mind, because after I sent over that initial version to Linz, he was overall loving the direction, but the main note he had was about the drums not really working. He said they felt like a VST, and he was right. I spent probably the better part of a week just trying stuff out and then hating it every time. So eventually we just decided that we needed real drums. So I called in one of my secret weapons.
Hey everybody, my name is Cameron Womack and I am a session drummer located in Sacramento, California. We wanted the drums to sound really organic and almost cinematic. So instead of playing the drums in a traditional sense, we decided to layer a bunch of elements on top of one another that all came together to craft the groove. So you'll notice when the drums do come in, there's this tom groove that happens with some light kick drum. I wanted my toms to almost replicate the sounds of timpani drums. So I used my Gretsch USA custom kit. It has 13 and 16-inch toms with coated emperors, and the drums were tuned wide open, and that really kind of helped add to the timpani-like sounds with those drums. The snare drum that comes in the last chorus is my Ludwig Black Beauty. It has a coated emperor on the top, and I used a little bit of a bandana to kind of help muffle the drum, and I ended up using this soft corn brush made by Headhunters. Again, I wasn't trying to make the drums sound like a standard drum kit. I wanted the whole thing to almost sound like a orchestral percussion section, and all of the different elements would come together to create the drum set.
So all those drums and extra layers gave us a ton of stuff to work with, but it still wasn't smooth sailing. This was an incredibly tricky song to get the drums to sit properly in the mix. So this is what we did to the drums to get them to really sit, just a lot of volume automation. So for example, if I remove the volume automation from the shoulder mic, which is basically the mic where Cam is sitting while he's drumming, have a listen to the way it picks up the snare. Tons of brightness and like quackiness from that snare comes through, like not even the snare mic. But of course, if I just EQ'd it out, I would be fundamentally changing the sound of everything that this mic is picking up, because it's picking up the whole kit, right? So literally just a volume automation did enough in the context of the full drum mix to just take away that bright edge of the snare. Here's what it sounds like on its own. I also layered in some samples to the snare. A much darker, more washed out sound. Layer that with the snare mics. And finally, the full drum kit and the perk layers. all of a sudden everything's working together to create this very cohesive world. I'm not gonna get too nerdy about the drum mix, but I do use a lot of tape saturation, often this J37 plugin, and then usually if I'm just shaping the tone of something, I'll stick mostly to these SSL channel strips and mostly just use the EQ, occasionally a little bit of compression on there. But yeah, I keep things quite simple when it comes to the processing for the most part. Next, we really needed some more melodic elements to support the lead vocal. And well, this wouldn't be an indie folk video without. So obviously strings are beautiful, that's why we love them, but I would also argue that one of the things that strings are absolutely the best at is like word painting. I made a whole video about word painting, but it's the idea that you kind of take the lyrics and you bring them to life through music. Maybe it's because people say like the violin and the cello are most similar to the human voice, but I feel like when they play off the lead vocals and the melody, it's just this really, really incredible thing that can happen. There's this line in the lead vocal, "You still hum those old refrains."
You still hum those old refrains.
And so to me, it's like the strings need to swell in there and play those old refrains. And I had this idea. I'm gonna record that and just kind of see how it goes. I don't have much of a plan, but I never do when I record strings anyways.
You still hum those old refrains. Songs you have remembered.
If you've never seen me record strings before, I have a viola with cello strings on it. 1/16 size cello strings. So that's how I get the low sounds, because I don't play cello. Alright, let's hear it on the speakers.
Songs you have remembered.
Coming along. Now I know that strings are going to ease my transition into this next chorus where things get big. By the way, off camera, I ran the bass through a Neural DSP bass preset, and it's got this kind of grungy sound to it now. Check it out. I think it's kind of cool. I feel like Linz will either love it or hate it. We'll see. But yeah, I need to ease the transition to this section though. Maybe the guitar actually comes out and the strings just carry it there.
Now there's nowhere I can go.
That's cool. So the rough strings were starting to take shape, and off camera I added some strings in some other parts and then re-recorded pretty much everything to get much better performed takes. Then it was time for revisions. Linz and I hopped on a couple calls and went through a bunch of stuff, a lot of mixed tweaks. Linz re-recorded some vocals on a new microphone as well. But most importantly, I knew that this song was feeling too obvious.
With a lot of songs of Bon Iver and Novo Amor, you can listen to one song like 10 times and here's something new. It's like very cool,
Yeah,
very
100%.
weird at the same time, but yeah, that's the kind of music I want to make with Oaken.
We needed some stuff that just catches the ear and makes you think for a second. So the first way we did that was with one of my absolute favorite indie folk production techniques. I basically just layered the main guitar with a banjo. So here's the banjo on its own. And with the guitar. And I added some electric slide guitar as well, which sounds kind of like the pedal steel, but it lends this new kind of texture and timbre. And one of my favorite moments is when that electric guitar returns in verse 2. It almost has this like rock kind of feeling to it for just a brief second. I also added this piano and modular synth, which come in the second chorus. The synth is this free patch on Decent Sampler. Piano is Noir by Native Instruments. Then in the outro, I used my favorite creative effects plugin, Beam by Lunacy Audio, which is like a combined reverb, delay, and granulation plugin. So these automate in the outro, and it sounds like this. Combined with some strings just doing little floaty things to create this really beautiful ambient space. You know, strings are just doing this. It's such a hack, you don't even need to be able to play the violin to do that. But as you'll notice, these aren't really new musical ideas. They're basically just new textures and timbres that we're adding that work alongside what's already there. Because it's really easy to overcomplicate this kind of song and just add a bunch of stuff and all of a sudden there's way too much going on. So if you really focus on developing the textures and the timbres of things rather than throwing in all these extra melodies and rhythms and stuff, that's going to get you a lot further in this kind of genre. Then pretty soon after, we had a final mix. For the final 10%, we sent it over to a very cool collaborator, Alexander Vatagen, who is an Austrian mastering engineer. And he actually worked on a bunch of the records that we reference for Linta's project, including Lissum, Low Swimmer, and even some Novo Amor. He absolutely knocked it out of the park, just providing some extra glue and polish and really just making sure the track sits nicely in that dark indie folk world. In a second, I'll show you the final song and the music video for it, marking the beginning of Oaken. But first, if you want to launch your own artist project like Oaken, or maybe you've released some stuff already, but you'd love to explore this kind of sound, I'd love to work together. Just hit the first link in the description for more information and to get the ball rolling. So here's a little snippet of the final song. If you want to listen to the full thing, then go listen to Hindsight by Oaken on any streaming platform. Catch you guys next time.
Exit we used to skip, you still hum those old refrains. Songs you had